Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very tall leader from the world of advertising, Mr. Madhukar Sabnavis from Mumbai, India. Madhukar, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you.
Ashutosh.
Madhukar is the former Vice Chairman and Director, Client Relations for Ogilvy, India. His interests beyond advertising are cricket, Hindi movies, and understanding culture. So, Madhukar, before we talk advertising, tell me a little bit about your own amazing journey.
Yeah. So, Ashutosh, I started in advertising in 1985 after I passed out of business school. I started in an agency called Clarion Advertising.
Yeah.
And then 2.5 years later, joined Ogilvy in 1988. And I've been with them for 34 years in various roles, retiring formally from a full-time job last year in August 2022. During my stint in advertising, I spent 14 years in client servicing, 3 years as a business leader, and then 20 years in planning. Particularly proud of that I set up a second agency for Ogilvy in 2000. And then I set up the planning function in Ogilvy in 2002 and ran it for about 13 years before I handed it over to a successor in 2015. During the period in Ogilvy, I was part of the Ogilvy India board for about 16 years. I was part of the worldwide board of Ogilvy for about 4 years, from 2012 to 2016. During the course of this 37 years, I've launched, refreshed multiple brands, created multiple categories, and driven a lot of consumption in part of the team that I worked with. And the biggest joy that I've had over 37 years is the joy of creation. And I just want to mention the joy of creation of campaigns. 37 years, I would identify at most 10 of iconic or great campaigns.
And which would some of these be, just for our viewers?
Yeah, clear. The Cadbury Kuch Meetha Ho Jai campaign, I was part of the team that created it. The Titan gifting campaign in the 90s was something that I was part of team that created it. Max Life, Sacha Advisor campaign was again, and the most recent is Bajaj Platina campaign. Why I'm actually, Ashutosh, identifying 10, and I've spoken about 4, is that over 37 years, many pieces of work that you do, but ultimately 8 or 10 pieces became strong, sustainable platform work that I had done. And that's something I think all viewers need to understand, that the journey is long. Core things that you feel proud of or particularly successful, maybe ultimately 8 or 10 over a large period of time. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. So given the kind of amazing experience you have in advertising, and you said 34, 35 years, the first question to you, Madhukar, is how has the advertising industry evolved in the last few decades, and what role has Ogilvy played in shaping it?
Okay. See, Ashutosh, I've been very fortunate. I think I got into advertising in 1985, little naive, didn't know too much about it, just as an adventure, saying I will take it 2 years at a time. In fact, I still remember when I joined Ogilvy in 1988, the managing director who actually hired me asked me, how long do you see yourself in advertising? And I said 2 years. And I said, that's the way I've seen it. As long as I enjoy it, I will stay in it. He actually hired me. So even though I didn't say I was going to be there for the company, but I've enjoyed it through these 2 years, and this 2 years extended to ultimately 37 years. I've been very fortunate that India went through a big change in 1991. When I joined advertising, the first change was television started booming. 1991, the doors got open, global brands came in, a lot of consumerism came in, and that brought a lot of excitement in the field of advertising. I started in advertising, which was monolith. One agency did everything. But over a period of time, we've moved into a lot of specializations. Similarly, I started in advertising when print was a dominant medium. Then we moved to television, and today we are seeing a digital revolution that has come in.
Correct.
So the industry has completely evolved, changed, morphed, got into new forms. I got into advertising when we were largely Indian-based agencies. Now today, almost everybody is part of global groups and global alignment. So that change has taken place. Started in advertising where, things were quite simple, less complicated, largely FMCG driven. Today, multiplicity of categories come in. In fact, a lot of social advertising is now emerging per se. And last of all, we've had creativity benchmarks changing from, looking at ourselves as India alone. Today, we are actually matching ourselves with the best in the world.
Absolutely.
Per se.
Absolutely.
So our benchmarks in creativity is not just India, but beyond India, looking at Cannes, which is the gold standard, one show, and trying to compete there.
Well said.
So big change. What has Ogilvy done? I don't know. I think it'll be too pompous to say one agency has shaped anything. But what we've done is we've been part of this journey of evolution and done our bit as conscientious, meaningful, business-minded agent.
Very interesting.
And we've been part of it.
Very interesting. My next question to you is that, when you look at the creative process in Ogilvy or for any other agency, how do you maintain a balance between creativity and business goals, especially in a market as diverse and dynamic as India?
Okay. To me, I'll quote a term a colleague and dear friend of mine said, Prem Narayan said, creativity is the AR to achieve business goals. Right. Not augmented reality. It's about attention and retention.
Okay.
At the end of the day.
Right.
Creativity is the tool that helps us to get consumer attention to our messaging and ensures they retain it for a longer time as they move towards actual final purchase. So to me, actually creativity and business goals are not de-linked, are not two independent things. That normally people look at it. There is creativity and there's business goals. Actually, in advertising, creativity is the means to get to business goals per se. So I think that's something that is very, very core to our business, which automatically means that every time we put out a message, and I remember once sharing a forum with a filmmaker, and a filmmaker spoke about this fear of a Friday. I told him that, look, you look at a Friday, maybe once a year, once in 2 years, depending on when you make a film. We look at a Friday, which comes almost every second week. Correct. Every time we put out a campaign where we attempt to be creative and try and push, whatever we've done before, whatever research we've done, whatever checks we've done, whatever wisdom we've used, ultimately there's a bit of a chance that takes place. Our belief is that, look, when you're creative, when you're taking some chances, you're likely to make a bigger difference. The harm that might happen with a campaign that doesn't harm many strong brands per se. So going back to your question, creativity is the AR of achieving goals.
Well said, well said. The next question is, and I'll use the other part of AR for technology. I wanted to ask you, I remember when I was young and in ITC, the whole communication and advertising space was big billboards and big cinema theaters, full page ads, etc., etc. Now, everything has switched to the digital media and the tiny little phone that all of us carry. My question is, what unique challenges and opportunities are there for marketers in the digital media space?
So I think at one level, when I look at the digital media space, my advertising life has come a full circle.
Correct.
As you rightly said, Ashutosh, in the 80s, when I started in advertising, lot of advertising was quite local. Whether you took print, you took cinema, you took outdoor, which were the major mediums, even radio. was all localized.
Mm.
In fact, television actually brought everything together and became national. And that really happened in the 90s and early 2000s. One of the things that digital has done is that we are having an opportunity to go back local. And this actually goes back to a question that you asked earlier, which I missed, about uniqueness of India. Actually, India is quite diverse.
Correct.
The uniqueness of India is diverse. Okay, localized marketing was actually a big opportunity, and the way we did things in the 70s and 80s. In the 90s and early 2000s, with the emergence of TV as a dominant medium and the most efficient medium became going national, some amount of localization and regionalization was lost, and we started doing what I would call lowest common denominator communication, looking at the national level. I think what digital is bringing back is an opportunity, not only of personalization, which you've certainly heard about, but also of going a little more local, because you can actually target literally from local to regional to zonal to national level communication. So that's one thing that digital has brought. Alongside digital has also brought a lot more data.
Correct.
So I think it's brought a lot more science. We had brought the science into even television advertising through, the monitoring systems and stuff like that. But today you have a lot more data to use for communication. The only caution I tell advertising practitioners and marketing practitioners is data is good. We shouldn't lose sight of it or shouldn't lose the opportunity of using it, but we should not let it overpower ourselves. Even today, I'd like to believe the human angle of either interpreting data or using data or bringing our own wisdom on data should continue and should be continued to be used. So that would work. So what is digitization bringing in? An opportunity to go back local, regional, personal. That opportunity is coming in for sure. And also it brings a lot more science into what we are doing.
Correct.
As marketers and advertising people.
Correct.
Just a caution, let's not lose sight of the human touch. The other bit, digital, and some of the words we are hearing today, AR, VR, I think are yet at infancy stage. We are exploring how to use it as communication medium, as messaging medium. Okay, and I think it will evolve as time goes along of how to use it.
Well said, well said. The other question that I wanted to know, and since you've led agency in Ogilvy in different parts over so many years, is that in the old days, again, there would either be a film star or a sports star. Today, there is a whole body of influencers and micro influencers. There's also the entire social media, which is changing the landscape. What are your thoughts on the role of role of influencers in social media?
I think there'll be an important pillar of any digital media strategy as we go forward. Yeah, it's interesting. India is a country of, I believe, 330 million gods. And I think at the root of that, from there emerges the fact that we are a celebrity-obsessed country. And I think that's not going to go away in a hurry. And so we are now with influencers on social media. We are going to have mini celebrities, and they provide an opportunity for marketing and brands to connect with consumers. Their circle of influence may be much smaller than what the celebrities of the 80s and 90s had. But I think they still do have influence. So there's an opportunity of using them as our message carriers to consumers per se. But I think we must bear in mind that there will be one part of the influence. Okay. I think there might still be opportunity for direct communication with your own stories, with your own message. That opportunity will also continue. Just as in the celebrity-obsessed world, there were brands that used celebrities and there were the brands that didn't use celebrities. So that will continue to exist. But we can't ignore, I think they will be important. Okay. And each of those influencers need to be evaluated for both their quantity of followers, okay, and the quality of following,
Hmm.
okay, and the credibility of them.
Very
So I
interesting.
think they will be important. They will be important. They will be a pillar, and we can't ignore them.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well said. We also will, refer to virtual reality and augmented reality. I'd love to get your perspective on how are these technologies like artificial intelligence, VR, AR, likely to shape the future of digital marketing?
But in my mind, what I worry, or not, I wouldn't use the word worry, but what I would pay attention to
Hmm.
is that technology is taking over a lot of stuff
Hmm.
in human lives.
Hmm.
And I tell my creative, client, planning, servicing partners, guys, we must be aware how much of our jobs can be taken over by technology. Let's not think it's going to it'll sail past us without affecting us. For
Right.
example, there is a possibility, and I don't think it's too far in the future, where creativity might be taken over by AI.
Hmm.
Getting consumer insights can be taken over by AI.
Right.
Solutioning, marketing solution will come up taken over by AI. Yeah, currently there is a fear with Chat GPT that some of it could be garbled and nonsense. But let's face it, the algorithm writers are smart to find a way of overcoming those challenges. So we need to reinvent ourselves to see what is the new role we can play in this new technology world. And like for AR and VR, how can we use it for our brand messaging? Okay, I think that would be the opportunity and challenge as technology and work. It's not only about digital marketing as much as in core marketing function itself, per se. How much, what shape it will take, for me, a little hard to say at the moment. Do I live with a little bit of fear that machines will take over? Ashutosh, could be. And we just have to guard ourselves against it. Yeah.
Well said. And do you see any kind of a challenge when it comes to data privacy, when it comes to digital marketing strategies?
I think the larger environment is talking about it and going to put constraints or put limits to how data can be used, per se. And as an industry, I think, we will follow it. As an industry, Ashutosh, I think the advertising and marketing industry has got a huge social conscious. So I don't think we will consciously transgress anything that breaks into privacy of individuals consciously. Yes, while technology develops, we might break some rules. But when we break some rules, if somebody holds up a mirror to us, we are very conscious to pull back, per se. And the other bit is that when I've seen, at least, the advertising and marketing industry has been run and driven by a lot of intelligent, middle-class human beings who are very, very conscious of, okay, where the limits are, even in creativity, per se. So if you notice creativity over the last 30 years, there have been times when we perhaps gone beyond the limits, sometimes in our attempt to get more creative. However, be it ASCII and regulation, or even our own conscience, sometimes tells us that we've crossed the limits. Let's pull back and play within norms. So yes, there will be the environmental norms that will guide us. There'll be our own personal conscience which will guide us. And yes, in our excitement or in our attempt to be more creative, sometimes we may break privacy norms. I think there was enough self-regulation for us to realize it and pull back.
Well said. Well
so
said.
I think there will, it's a journey again that we have to do.
Wonderful.
And we find our way.
Wonderful. I have time for a few more questions. My next question is that advertising agencies are also playing a big role in addressing social issues and promoting positive change. I'd love to get your perspective on what you are doing in this area.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. When I joined Ogilvy, there was a line David Ogilvy said.
Yeah.
the reason for advertising. He said, we sell or else. Because at that time, the focus of advertising was largely commercial, to sell products and services.
Absolutely.
And that too even globally. I would like to change to saying we change behavior or else now. I think over a period of 35 years, one has realized the power of advertising, not only to sell, but to drive human behavior change, which can very well be applied to social change.
Correct.
Okay. Currently, as an agency, and where even my personal involvement has been fairly limited, but as an agency, wherever we've got an opportunity to do campaigns that drive behavior change, like the polio drops campaign that Ogilvy did for UNICEF.
Do Boond,
Yeah, Do Boond. Wherever we get the opportunity, we attempt to do it. Even more recently, we did a campaign for NSDC, National Skills Development Corporation. Hunar hai to kadar hai. Trying to promote the respectability and the value of vocational skills, which, as you understand, in a country like India, which is very caste-driven, anything that is human labor-driven is technically looked down upon. We have done our bit. And I think there is an opportunity to do lot more. What's important in these kind of things, at the end of the day, as an agency, while we may do some stuff pro bono, ultimately we are a business outfit. And so there has to be some business returns for it. So I think as social marketing gathers momentum, gathers support in both the financial and human resource sense, I think the advertising industry, Ogilvy included, are available to actually provide professional skills and outlook to give stronger solutions. What I feel in this area currently, what I've seen, there's not too much of sustainable support that happens. And so some of this ends up becoming a little bit sporadic. But I think, Ashutosh, over a period of time, I think social marketers will realize both things. One, that you have to do it on a sustainable basis, a basis for which you need to put human resource and financial resources behind it. And second, that for professional services, ultimately needs to be paid for. Ashutosh, lots of people, ultimately, we are in a business, and in a business, you can do so much pro bono. At the end of the day, if it has to be motivating, organizations need to be financially compensated. And if that happens, I think the opportunity is a lot. I do believe in the power of advertising to build social change. I do believe.
Great response.
But sustainability is very important, Ashutosh. If you look at all the commercial brands, they've been built on the back of sustainable efforts. And I think social change will require the same thing.
Well said. And Madhukar, my last question to you, and this is for the many people who will listen to our conversation. A lot of them are small and medium enterprise owners, small businesses. We are a startup nation. What would you say are 3 lessons a lot of these young people would like to do, you would want them to take back from your own journey and from our conversation?
The first is, I think, company culture matters. I think it's extremely important. Besides recognition, remuneration, designation, job content,
correct,
I think for everybody, whether it is individuals or startup organizations, building a culture on being sensitive to the environment in which people work is very, very important. So even as an individual, you have to look at who are the people you work with. Are their belief systems the same? Are their ways of working the same? In fact, one of the reasons I stayed in Ogilvy for 34 years in an industry which is normally believed to be fast-moving, where people move around a lot, is because I think I found a very good cultural fit with the people I worked with. I think one of the joys I had is I worked with some of the nicest and brightest people, whether it was creative people, planning people, servicing people, clients, or even my regional leaders that I worked with. I think we sometimes under-index that as individuals who work in organizations, and even at people who create organizations. we under-index it. We think ultimately life is about designations, rewards, recognition, and what you do as an output. I think one is the cultural, the company culture matters.
Yeah.
The second, I think, is patience. Ashutosh, you just told me a story about what you've done in this brand called You initiative itself for the last 4 years. Okay. And the numbers that you spoke about of a number of people and the content and the viewership that you're getting is amazing. I think nothing happens overnight. We just have to be very, very patient.
Correct.
So even in advertising, I've learned that nothing gets created overnight. You've got to be hugely patient. Life is about successes and setbacks and failures.
Right.
And patience is extremely important for you to overcome that.
Right.
That's the second one. The third, and I'll take the license to giving you 4 instead of 3.
Yeah.
The third, I think we all have to believe in teamwork. Nobody can do everything himself or herself.
Yeah.
Again, when you spoke about the brand called You, there seems to be a team that makes all this happen.
Correct.
And we need to recognize, and when we recognize team, we need to recognize diversity of skills, diversity of perceptions, and so each of us have to adapt to each other. I think in any organization, in any place, teamwork is very, very important. And what you as an individual can do for teamwork is to recognize that a team is required and do some amount of adaptation, adapting for it. Don't look at it as compromise, but as adjustments to make the team work better.
Correct.
And the last, I feel very important, which is really advertising learning that I've got over 37 years. I started saying we are addressing consumers, but I've realized ultimately we are talking to people. It's important to understand consumption behaviors. You need to understand, and ultimately, if I'm talking about advertising and the commercial world, we need people to buy our products as consumers and consume it. But ultimately, we are talking to human beings, to people. And understanding consumers as people is as important as looking at them as people who are actually buying a product. And that has actually helped us to create and evolve our storytelling patterns over 30, 35 years. So when you look at them as people, you turn around and say, as people, what are new media that they are consuming? What is the new environment they are living in? What are their new drivers, motivators, and concerns? That has helped actually to craft our stories as far as advertising is concerned, and marketers to recraft their products in that context, and even ourselves to recognize new media that these consumers live in. So I think the fourth bit is to always remember that we are not talking to consumers or customers that most businesses like tonight. We're actually talking to people.
Correct.
And people. Yeah. So these are 4 that I would.
Very nice. Very, very nice. And on that note, Madhukar, and your 4 amazing lessons. Company culture matters. Second, nothing happens overnight, and therefore be patient. Third one you said was believe in teamwork. And the fourth one you said there may be customers, there may be consumers, but understand people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. I loved your comment, which you said, we change behavior or else. Thank you for talking to me about your amazing journey with Ogilvy. It's very seldom do I now meet people who have spent 37 years with one organization. Thank you for talking to me about so many different aspects of advertising, about some of the values that Ogilvy has, about a broader perspective of digital marketing and advertising, about the new tools that are coming in to be able to support advertising, and so many different aspects of different types of communication. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. So delighted to speak to you and your audiences. And I'm so glad that I've got to know a very interesting and nice person like you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.